That's you, Georgette.
All right. Am I muted?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, good evening. I'm Georgette Howington, Contra Costa and Alameda Counties Coordinator for the California Bluebird Recovery Program. And I've been a nest box monitor for 24 years. First, I'd like to thank Sal for inviting Mike and I to give this introduction to the nest box program. We reached out to all the Audubon chapters a few months ago, offering to share Nestbox program resources and encourage chapters to start their own Nestbox trails. Stanislaus County, according to documentation I've read, has 330 or more species of birds, including quite a few primary and secondary cavity nesters. You have western and mountain bluebirds, plus many others. Your chapter, established in 1973, has a rich history of conservation in your community, and by the looks of your website, have had a lot of fun doing so. I read some of Sal's well-crafted and interesting articles that are posted, plus look through all the links. You have quite an impressive chapter, and we are thrilled to share the Nestbox program with all of you. The California Bluebird Recovery Program was established in the late 1990s by a gentleman named Don Yoder. Originally from the Midwest, he had fond childhood memories of eastern bluebirds. He and his wife were building a home at Rossmore in Walnut Creek. Rossmore, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's an over 55 community on about 2,200 acres in Tice Valley in Walnut Creek. When an oak tree was felled to make room for the foundation, Don saw bluebird nests, eggs, and baby birds scattered on the ground. Bluebird parents frantically tried to save them. Heartbroken, he realized the irony of how his new home caused the destruction of precious bluebird homes. From that day forward, he vowed to dedicate time and effort to bluebird conservation. After getting permission, he installed bluebird boxes on the golf courses at Rossmore, and the boxes were taken up almost immediately by the birds, and not just western bluebirds. Thus, he realized the need for cavities was not limited to bluebirds. Since Don was a member of the Mount Diablo Audubon Society, he worked closely with that chapter to establish the California Bluebird Recovery Program as an affiliate. He also established CBRP as an affiliate of the North American Bluebird Society. Upon his passing, Dick Blaine became program director. CBRP has grown over the years. Since 1996, average data collected annually is approximately 16,000 successful fledges a year. That's a lot of birds. We have forged alliances with Audubon chapters, land trusts, cities, schools, parks, and utility watersheds, Cornell Ornithological Institute and their Nest Watch program, nonprofits such as Wild Farm Alliance stage hundreds of community events, worked with Eagle Scout candidates in our local communities. Just recently, Sierra Foothills Audubon installed a trail they named the Jailbirds Trail, situated around the Wayne Brown Correctional Facility. While our signature birds are the western and mountain bluebirds, we support and promote conservation of all the cavity nesters, such as barn owls, wood ducks, American kestrels, screech owls, not to mention the smaller birds like tree swallows, chickadees, nuthatches, titmice, to name a few. And to back up a little bit, As Don Yoder was learning about bluebird conservation, he was struck by the fact that bluebird populations on the West Coast had plummeted dramatically through the 1950s all the way through the late 1970s. At this point, the Western bluebird's population is up about barely 1%, which is good. So in other words, our efforts, along with other situations in the environment, have actually brought the little Western bluebird back to many areas that they had almost disappeared in. Nest box monitors throughout the state install nest boxes in appropriate habitats after getting permission from organizations that manage the lands. Boxes are monitored every 7 to 10 days during the nesting season. Data is recorded and turned in at the end of the season. We also have many nest boxes installed in backyard habitats where owners set up gardens for the nesting birds and monitor as well. Support we offer is 1, training and coaching, which we can do on an individual basis. I do this a lot. 2, grants to reimburse materials. This is very, very valuable. I'm working with 2 Eagle Scout candidates right now. One is a girl. I've never had a girl in all these years. And it's very helpful to the families to have a little help in that regard. And we have educational resources that include preferred nest box plans, instructions, tutoring on habitat placement, predator control, etc., etc. We hope to connect with someone in your membership, maybe one of you, who might be interested in becoming a county coordinator for Stanislaus County. If any of you are interested, please contact us. You can leave your name and email in the chat or contact us through cbrp.org. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please, put them in the chat. I'll be glad to answer them as I can. And with all that said, I'd like to introduce my associate and colleague, Mike Azevedo, County Coordinator for Santa Clara County, naturalist and avid conservationist. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Can you see the shared screen there? Okay, good deal. Once again, welcome and thank you. Georgette and I are concerned about our environment. There's going to be a little bit of repetition, so I think you're going to hear some things kind of over again, and the idea is that we want to really drive it home. So Georgette and I are concerned about our environment and realize that our program could be more effective, and we could do a better job by partnering with our Audubon chapters on a more a basis that we're able to really connect with them. And that's why we're here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat at any time, and Georgette's there to answer the questions, and we can always hit stuff like that at the end too. This is Don Yoder, who you're now familiar with. Georgette was one of Don's first volunteers, and she's hoping to keep his legacy going. The destruction that you heard about that inspired Don to start his organization is still happening. And the only difference is that now we've had Don's organization going for decades. And just like elsewhere in the country where they have other bluebird societies, our work is paying off. The bluebirds are more numerous because they have more homes to raise their young. So here's Georgette at a tabling event. One of our purposes is to spread the word about habitat and habitat destruction and how people can bring back some of what has been lost. Nest boxes are a component of habitat. Saving natural cavities is important, and we can never stop trying to preserve them, but the forces that have been working against cavity nesting homes are relentless, and unfortunately, nest boxes are going to be important from now on, and we're not going to be able to just assume that we can bring back natural cavities. If you have tabling events, we hope you consider giving cavity nesting birds a table to spread the word. We're willing to participate if you don't have participants who are able to tell people about nest boxes. Now, I live in Manteca, and we have lots of grassy parks. Unfortunately, I'm trying to work with them on the general plan because the truth is that I have not seen a lot of natural area. We got Caswell Park, and that's about it in Manteca, and they have a lot of lots with invasive weeds and stuff. The most native plants are actually trees that have been planted down by the freeway. So, but they do have a lot of grass, and they have bluebirds around that grass. And I'm hoping to set up a project with Manteca to put nest boxes around the parks. If we had other oaks and cottonwoods and things like that, there would also be room to try and help our cavity nesting birds that nested there too. So what is a cavity nesting bird? It's and I'm sorry, I know a lot of you are well aware of what a cavity nesting bird is, but I'm just trying to give a one size fits all kind of talk. Cavity nesting birds are birds that nest in cavities, say woodpecker holes, or natural cavities that may have started off as a fissure where the heartwood of a tree rotted out and a branch breaks off, and that leaves an opening that the bird is able to use to get in there. One thing about both of those is the trees are not long for this world. So the Western bluebird, an iconic, beautiful, and a bird that is seen in movies and it was seen in Disney cartoons and stuff like that. It's an indicator species. It's such a beautiful bird that everybody noticed when it disappeared. And just because, and so a lot of these organizations, they say bluebird in the title, but you have to remember that just because bluebird is remembered and seen, it's an indicator species, and it means that other cavity nesting birds that may not be quite so obvious that they're disappearing, they are in just as, or were in just as much trouble. People are not helping them as much, and it's as simple as Western bluebirds, you put the nest box where a Western bluebird would want that box, but there may be other cavity nesting species that need a nest box in a different position, and we don't put it there, and that doesn't help them. So it's important that we help all the cavity nesting species. So the bluebird has sparked a movement to provide nest boxes for them, but they are just one cavity nesting bird, and many of the others are less well known and deserve our help too. I'd have one baby picture. Monitoring nest boxes is fun, fulfilling, rewarding, and good exercise. That's kind of a mantra we came up with, and it's all true. Nest box monitoring is a really fun thing to do, and something that makes for a very relaxing pastime. The mountain bluebird, also in California, it's not doing as well as the western bluebird, and it lives at higher elevation. The tree swallows hunt flying insects and can be beneficial to agriculture and to us at home wanting fewer flies and mosquitoes around. Tree swallows like ponds and lakes and stuff like that. They're found kind of lower in the valley compared to the violet green swallow, which is known as a late arrival after most cavities are gone. So in other words, if you don't have many cavities, it's going to be hard on the violet green swallow because they would show up after people have already taken them. They're like the last to dance. They're more upland species, and you will usually find one swallow or the other nesting in your area. You don't usually find both. You may find both actually, eating in that area, but usually one or the other is going to be nesting there. Chesterback chickadee, there are actually a number of chickadee species in the United States, and you'll likely have only one species in your area. In the Bay Area, for example, you have the chestnut-back chickadee, which is common. Others in California include the mountain chickadee and the black-capped chickadee. Now, the black-capped chickadee, it really depends on what range map you look at, because some range maps try and show it as just skirting right along the top of California so that they're in Oregon, but they don't actually come down into California. And others show that they come down in like Del Norte and Crescent City, that area. And that's it. So we may get a little bit of black-capped chickadee, but I just wanted to include it just in case. Oak titmouse likes oaks. Each species has their own need for a nesting site. So chickadees and titmice are very similar and often use the same nest boxes. But chickadees use a wider variety of trees, which means that there are some places you'd find chickadees and not titmice. A very secretive bird, the white-breasted nuthatch, is another tree, oak tree lover. And then there's also the red-breasted nuthatch. So the white-breasted nuthatch isn't all that common in our nest boxes. Red-breasted nuthatches are even less common, but both are found in nest boxes. And then if the pygmy nuthatches, they nest far higher in the tree, and we don't usually see them in our boxes at all. Riparian habitat bird, the ash-throated flycatcher, will show up in our boxes if you happen to have them near riparian habitat. The house wren, which is a stick nest bird, they could be jealous and unfriendly and require careful placement of the boxes within their habitat. They're a native bird. It's not like the house sparrow. And you can't just go and remove their nest. You have to place the nest box so that they have a box near their area that they're good with, and then you put the other ones out of their area so that other birds have a chance to nest. And they like thickets. Bewick's wrens are a much nicer bird. The Bewick's wren can be found in nest boxes that overlap with chaparral habitat. And then getting into larger nest boxes, the American kestrel is having a hard time. Even with nesting boxes being offered, we like to help them even though they're having trouble in addition to nesting sites. In other words, that's not necessarily their main problem, in order to help make cavities one less issue for them to deal with. Barn owls are gaining favor as a means of controlling rodents, and their effectiveness is well known. Barn owl boxes can be seen in agricultural applications around the state. The nest box we recommend was developed by Steve Simmons of Merced, who died recently, unfortunately. And an oak tree lover, the western screech owl, uses the same box as the American kestrel, but it has to be in a different habitat situation. And northern saw-whet owls are another owl, but they prefer coniferous habitat. And then northern flickers are actually woodpeckers and routinely use nest boxes built for them. And while I'm at it, there's also the Nuttall's woodpecker and the downy woodpecker that are sometimes found in our nest boxes. I've had Nuttall's woodpecker in my nest box a couple of years running. And we've also had, like I said, the downy woodpecker. And basically, every now and then you may find a woodpecker of some kind in your nest box. So I just thought I'd mention them. Wood ducks. There are actually a number of local ducks that nest in cavities, but many of them actually nest outside of the state. But the wood duck is one of the ones that nests around here. And I call the burrowing owl an honorary cavity nester because they nest in the ground. So it's a cavity, and you can actually build a nesting cavity for them in the ground. It's possible to do that. So that's important. If you have them in your area, they're definitely in trouble. And then cavity nesting mammals such as bats. And I also tend to find mice and rats, native mice and rats in my boxes at my county park. So I figure they're native, bottom of the food chain. So they get a home. And then bumblebees are just one cavity nesting insect, but there are actually a lot of different cavity nesting bees. They use obviously different kinds of cavities. So that's something to keep in mind. County coordinators are here. We try and have one in every county, but unfortunately they're not in every county. We are missing them in, for example, Stanislaus County. What a county coordinator would do is to get familiar and experienced with the art of nest box monitoring and be able to answer questions from people from around the county. For example, they answer questions using their experience in nest box monitoring. They can answer questions like what they need in nest boxes, what different species are in this county, and what they need in nest boxes and nest box placement. And they answer questions like what happened to the eggs that were in my nest box. So the county coordinators are important. Some of them are very active, including the one who's actively going out and putting nest boxes around that prison in Nevada County that Georgette just told you about. We have a professor in Davis, Melanie Truen, who is our nest box coordinator there. Kate Brennan is the one in Nevada County. So Melanie Truen is running the Putak Creek Nest Box Trail, and she helps people all around there. You have Michelle Unger in San Francisco that we just recruited, and she's doing all kinds of things there. We have a lot of a lot of county coordinators, and we're willing to help in Stanislaus County. If you never do get a county coordinator, we'll help, and that's what she meant by the personal coaching and stuff like that. A lot of times that's done by county coordinators, but we'll do what we can from outside if we have to. What is a nest box trail? Well, it's just a line of nest boxes that you can make so that you can walk from one to the next to the next to the next, and investigate them all, monitor them, open them up, see what's going on, clean them out. And so you could put them in parks, cemeteries, any open space, really, even corporate campuses. And how to set up a nest box trail in a park or open space is another something that we will train you to do. The county coordinator is somebody who's going to want to know what you want to do. You want to do it in such a way that you're making everybody happy. For example, corporate campuses, you can imagine, you can't just go and do everything you want. You've got to work with the people that run the property so that you're not interfering with the mowing. You're not putting it in a place that's going to have construction, because you don't want the nest box to be active while there's construction going on nearby. So things like that. There's a whole bunch of stuff to it, and we're willing to show how to do it. Training that we offer includes how to build a nest box trail, but it also includes the best nest boxes and what to avoid in nest boxes, what you want in a good nest box, how to build them, and how to mount them, stuff like that. So that's all stuff that we offer. And you can use the media to drum up volunteers. And the important thing about that is that it's easier than it seems, because the media loves this kind of project, and they're going to be very on board with giving you attention once. So do it right the first time, because once you've done it, they don't want to hear from you again. So you want to do one really big push to get volunteers, and you want to know exactly where to send them, what website to go to, how to train them, and all that stuff. You want to have it all set up so that you can make that one big push successful, because you can't say, 3 months ago we did it really well, but unfortunately we weren't ready for it, so we want to do it again. It doesn't work that way. Okay. But it's very successful when you do it right. Nesting season is February through August. We're in the middle of it right now, but we're not really suggesting that you try and get involved in trying to get it all set up right now. What we think you ought to do is to try and get it so that we're able to launch really well next season. So we'll be training. We can train in fall or December, January, have everybody all ready to go, have their trails all set up, and then next season we'll hit the ground running. Why would we want a weekly monitor? The reason is because you don't want to go too often, but you don't want to go too few times too. There are a couple things. First of all, house sparrows. Now, not everywhere has problems with house sparrows, but house sparrows can be a real problem. They are vicious. They are introduced. They don't belong here. They kill adult native birds as well as young and eggs. We do not want to encourage them, but they will take over your nest box if you give them a chance. So what you do is you watch every week, and if you see a house sparrow nest, you remove it. Okay. We don't want to give them the opportunity. And sometimes it takes quite a while to discourage them. But unfortunately, there really isn't. We don't want house sparrows, and it's not one of the. Sometimes I see people say, Well, I want my kids to learn the value, life and the starting of life and all this. And they say, well, it's okay to have a house. No, it's not okay to have a house sparrow nest. And then predation. So snakes and even lizards and birds, certain birds, raccoons. There's a lot of different things that will go after the babies. As I say, they're hunted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And unfortunately, a lot of times when you walk up to the box and you find it empty, if you go every week, you'll know that something's wrong. If you go once a month, you don't know if maybe they all fledged. So if you go every week, you'll know where in the cycle they are, and you'll be able to tell that something is amiss. And sometimes moving the box from one place to another, even not that far away, is really the only thing you can really do to prevent predation from happening again. Because a box can be considered basically just a popcorn feeder for, you're just feeding the snakes. That's all you're doing. You don't want to do that. So weekly monitoring allows you to keep track of the cycle. Data collection, you want to keep track of what you find in the box. You always want to have a way to open the box and look inside, see what you've got, how many eggs, how many young, if you've got young, things like that. And then we have resources for you. For example, we're on Facebook and Twitter. And you can always write to us send us messages at Facebook. And it just so happens that the people that are running the Facebook page are me and Georgette. So you can always contact us at those two areas. CBRP is our .org is our website, and we just recently renovated it. So if you saw it back when it was just a gray website with nothing but text, I can happily tell you that it's much nicer now and much more friendly. So it's got the list of our county coordinators. It's got hints and nest box plans and all kinds of stuff there. So there's that. Then there's grants. We are actually doing pretty well and financially, and we're able to offer money to people who want to put up a nest box trail, but who need a little bit of help financially in order to afford the boxes. So you can apply for a grant from us, and we'll go over how to get the information, the material for you to get these grants going. Okay. And then finally, she mentioned personal coaching. Now, ordinarily, like I said, that's something that the county coordinator would be able to do. So the county coordinator is going to be somebody who's going to be experienced at nest box monitoring and able to answer questions on it. Luckily, the county coordinator is there for the people of your county, and we are there for your county coordinator. If they have any questions, they can always contact us and get help. So even somebody who is not all that familiar with nest box monitoring can do but who's willing to try. I mean, you don't want somebody who's never going to get their step foot out and start nest box monitoring. But if there's nobody else out there who's got any experience, and you have somebody who's willing to give it a try and willing to go out and get started, and we're able to give them a hand, then that's great. But in the absence of a county coordinator, we're willing to answer questions and even help people. And one of the ways we do it is by going on like Google Earth. So let's say somebody writes to me and they say, hey, I'm at the other end of the state and I'd like to put up a nest box program. I don't have to drive all the way over there. I ask you a bunch of questions, such as what kind of trees are around, the grass, and I judge what kind of what kind of birds that are cavity nesting birds that I think are going to be around there. And we go ahead and set up a system to install the nest boxes there. And I do everything that I can in order to give help that way. And of course, if there's the county coordinator who wants to learn more, then we're here to try and work with them one-on-one. But like I said, we're even willing to help any of your members one-on-one if that's what it takes in order to get this going. So there you are. Does anybody have any questions? Georgette, did you see any questions in chat? that you're able to
You,
answer?
No.
you can go ahead and stop sharing the screen if you want. We'll get back to,
Okay.
and I'm gonna stop recording on my side.